It's 9 a.m. Boston time. So let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My distinct pleasure to welcome you to this webinar. Hopefully it'll be a very, very interactive one. My name is Suraj Srinivasan. I'm a professor at Harvard Business School. I'm also the lead faculty for the Digital Value Lab at our Digital Data and Design Institute at Harvard. And my pleasure to, first of all, welcome you all and then share with you this latest research report that we worked with Capgemini Research Institute to bring in front of you. I found this research to be really exciting. There are several things here that we want to share. But before we get moving, let me introduce my two colleagues on this call, on this webinar with you. Valerie Ligat. Valerie is the former Chief Digital Officer, until recently the Chief Digital Officer at Carrefour, the global retail chain. Valerie has years, if not decades, of experience in the kinds of issues that we are talking about. Valerie, welcome, and really excited to hear what you have to share as we go along this presentation. My second colleague, co-presenter on this call is Fernando Alvarez. Fernando is a senior executive member of the executive board, head of strategy for Capgemini. Fernando, in his role, both with his clients and with his role at Capgemini itself, in a broader strategic sense, sees a lot of the trends that we observed in this research project. So I'm looking forward to hearing Fernando's views and perspectives as well as we go along. So thank you, Fernando, for joining. Thank you, Valerie, for joining. Let me proceed with sharing with you what we started to do and what we found as the key findings here. By the way, there's a Q&A open. We'd love for you to engage as we go along and not just wait till the end. We will have some dedicated time, but we hope to not wait till the very end for you to be asking questions. So please just go with questions. Either of us or Amol, who's who led the project from Capgemini Research Institute, will be glad to just chip in with our perspectives as you ask the questions. So let me just get started here. This was a very, very interesting project for me for multiple reasons. But the most interesting thing was we started, Amol and I and his colleagues, we all discussed, and the starting goal was what's going to be the future of the digital economy? What's happening? What are we observing? What does the world, what do senior executives in businesses around the world think of what's happening? So let me first tell you how we went about doing this, and then come up with the objectives. We decided to talk to senior executives at 1,500 different organizations, and these were senior executives, CEOs, directors, heads of technology, people like Valerie, who are leading business transformation, technology transformation in their companies across a range of industries, across a range of countries, and then in-depth interviews with several of them. Our starting question was, sort of the broad umbrella question was, what's going to be the future of the digital economy? Very quickly, as we started talking to people, we understood that this is inseparable today from what is happening in the world of sustainability, world of social value, environmental value that businesses drive for companies. So our question actually pivoted right in that first week to how do organizations, what drives the digital economy? But we quickly went to this idea of an eco-digital economy. What drives organizations to drive digital transformation while driving sustainable business models? How do digital and sustainability work symbiotically? That to me is the biggest. There's going to be so many different findings here, but the biggest one for me is this idea that the world is both digital and sustainable. So there are two paths which might have been parallel before, but are highly intersecting today. One reinforces the other. The word symbiotic is very relevant. So that's why we call this a dual transition to an eco-digital era. 8 out of 10 organizations that we talk to reinforce this initial view that of this dual transition to a more digital and sustainable world. So what are some key, what are some high-level findings here? And we'll get slightly into details. My objective here is twofold. One is to highlight some of the eye-catching findings for you all. Some of the findings which really jump out at us. But there's a lot underneath those. When we say, for example, the size of the economy will move, eco-digital economy will move from X to Y, there's a lot underlying that. We won't have the time to get into all those specific things. I'll highlight the key big ideas, and I will urge you all to look at the report. Maybe we can put the report, link to the report in chat here, so that people can download it right during the webinar itself, Amol or Amala, if that's possible. So that's one key objective, is to give you the highlights, to give you the big things that we found. The second thing, I have a few slides here. We won't get into the details given the limited time that we have, but I'll just give you a flavor of the types of things that we are finding, so that you can go and look at the report for things that you could be doing in your organizations, things that the changes you could be making, the trends that you're seeing, and benchmark yourself as to where you are. Are you a leader? Are you having some things that you have to learn from the companies that are maybe at the cutting edge here? So let me pick up some of these highlights. As we already mentioned, about 8 of 10 organizations highlighted this idea of a dual transition. There's a sustainability transition, there's a digital transition. Both of these are working together. A vast majority of them actually believe that technology is the solution to achieving their sustainability goals. As an example of that, 24 on average in our sample of 1,500 companies. Now remember, these are the largest companies all around the world in several countries, across industries. About a quarter of them say that digital technologies have helped them reduce their, on average, they say digital technologies have helped them reduce a quarter of their energy consumption. That to me is a pretty big, and you're going to see right next that we are just getting started with this growth in the digital economy. And that that to me is one of the biggest learnings, at least for me, is the digital economy as it stands is expected to grow pretty significantly over the next 5 years. So 2x growth in the next 5 years. So if you think about that, that is a compounded 2x over a period of 5 years, is a tremendous rate of growth in this. And the other very exciting thing was this thing that I just said, which is we are just getting started. I'll dig a little deeper into this as we go along. It was quite surprising to me to hear from senior leaders, from technology leaders, that we have barely scratched the surface, that they believe, and look, these are survey results. This is not like us telling you what we think. This is a group of global executives telling you what's happening, is that only 25% of the potential has been realized so far. So imagine what that means. 75% of the potential still remains to be extracted, still remains to be developed, still remains to be taken the opportunity of as we go along. And again, 70% of organizations believe that digital technology is driving the sustainability era as organizations find ways of bringing digital into the mainstream of their business models. I'm not going to go through this somewhat busy slide. What we did, and I'll urge you to look at the report for this, is to compare what exists versus what is going to be. And I think this will be useful for you to spend a little bit of time on. But here's what I would summarize things as. We have learned a lot. Cloud has enabled reduction in cost, new algorithms where AI is, has allowed software and algorithms to really advance. So that platform has been laid. Sustainability, which was, baby steps 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, in many parts of the world, is in the forefront. No doubt there is a lot of frictions in that, some pushback on that. So my lesson, my big picture lesson from that I wanted to present with this slide without getting into the details here, is that the foundational steps have been taken. The platform has been laid. That is why this period of fast, rapid growth is possible today. And that is going to be the opportunity and perhaps a challenge. The opportunity is going to be, how do we then execute? And I'd love Valerie and Fernando in just a minute to start reflecting on these ideas. So let me take a pause myself, catch my breath, and turn to my colleagues, Valerie first, and then Fernando. How do you see this idea, this idea that we are presenting, that this is a dual transition, that is the eco-economy, the digital economy, both of them are intersecting now? Valerie, you've been in the front of Carrefour, a global organization with thousands, tens of thousands of employees, thousands of locations around the world. You've been at the center of this. Please share your perspective.
Okay. Thank you very much, Suraj. Happy to share. So perhaps I can share two things. The way we reviewed the organization to be more efficient on digital, and also how we used digital and data and analytics to create features that would reduce our impact, the e-commerce impact on the environment. So maybe on the first point regarding the organization, what we did last year was implementing a digital factory model for Carrefour, mostly in order to help and to force the convergence between business, product, tech, and design teams. Okay, because in digital, if you do not work in cross-functional with those four expertise, you're for sure missing out on some key domains. We stole something from Walmart, and I must say, because we're probably with a US participant in this webinar, we stole the 4-in-a-box concept, right? So thank you, Walmart. It was very, very extremely useful for us. 4-in-a-box, it means putting product, business, tech, and design people around the table to identify the problem to be solved and to design the most relevant solutions to solve these problems. So that was one of the key pillars of our model, the 4-in-a-box. Then we implemented OKRs, objectives and key results. Thank you to Intel for that, because they're the ones who invented the OKR model. It's a very simple principle. The basic thinking is that you cannot solve what you cannot measure, right? So you don't know if you have a problem until you're able to put a figure on the size of that problem. And then we also worked on the discovery discipline, which is super interesting because it's a framework that forces you to really validate the fact that you have a perfect understanding of the problem that you need to solve. So it's very design-centric, very user-centric, and combines also this set of expertise. And so this model, this digital factory model, relying on those three pillars, was first deployed in France for e-commerce, and then very quickly scaled to stores, financial services, and other services in the group. And within a year, it became the model that was going to be spread out to our European countries. So it has proven its efficiency, reducing the time to market, enhancing the quality of our products, and also increasing the eNPS of our colleagues. So that's more on the organization part. Then maybe I can share with you the way, and I really love this combination of digital and eco, because it was a very strong topic for us last year. It, of course, still remains a big topic now. But last year, what we did is really using digital and analytics to craft features that would enable to increase to reduce the negative impact of e-commerce on the environment. And for that, for example, we worked on features such as green slots. So not forcing, but incentivizing our customers to select slots for their delivery that were the ones with the highest completion rate of the trucks, right? To avoid having a truck on the road being half empty. So we gave financial incentives to our customers, telling them, well, if you choose to be delivered at 3 p.m., the slot is not so crowded as the 7 p.m. slot, so you'll pay less for your delivery, or it will even be free. We also worked on a feature that was quite surprising for a retailer, and if some of you are from retail, you might be surprised. Ooh, it's inviting our customers to change the products that they have in their basket, even if the margin for us is lower, under the condition that the product has a better CSR score. Okay, so just during the checkout, we would tell you, okay, Valérie, you bought this tomato sauce, this pasta, this cheese. Well, your impact on the environment is quite high because tomatoes come from China, pasta comes from blah, blah. We have an alternative recommendation to show you: local grown tomatoes, local pasta, etc. And even though
that's interesting, Valerie. Sorry to interrupt. That's interesting because you always face this tension. You always face this tension between, or the general understanding is we can win both ways. We can make money and be sustainable, but at some point there has to be some tension. If it was so easy, then we would have done it by now. So there has to be some tension between we'll actually make less money if you want to be sustainable, and you're saying you made that trade-off. You made that trade-off because in the long run you'll be more successful.
No doubt, because you increase one thing that is absolutely key for the engagement that we wanted to have with our customers, which is trust, right? So if Carrefour says that you could pay 15 euros, but I invite you to pay 11, you're going to really fuel the trust dimension in price also for Carrefour. So you're going to increase frequency potentially of your customers. It was a big bet. People were a bit afraid, mostly the business teams, and then it delivered the expected impact, increasing frequency of our customers and increasing CSAT also of our customers.
Let me turn to Fernando, Valerie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let me also make a quick announcement. I see that some people raise their hands from the participants. We're not going to take live questions. So please put your questions in Q&A, and then we will start addressing them through that. So please use the Q&A feature of the webinar. We won't have the time to take live questions here. Please, Fernando, floor is yours.
No, thank you. I will be piggybacking on Valerie's thoughts as to the example she gave. What we're seeing from a general perspective, from a market trend and from our clients, we see 5 distinctive points that I think the research was able to capture. The first point is that there's a paradigm shift regarding the need to be more sustainable in the ESG. The environmental part of the ESG is not a nice to have, it's a must to have, and it's here to stay. So I think that is becoming more and more latent or visible, especially it is a given in Europe, it's manifesting stronger in the US more and more. So by pushing a sustainable agenda, I think the general consensus, which you prove in this study, is that technology and digital is not a monopoly controlled by the IT departments. It's catered and used by everybody in the organization to achieve those goals. So the tension that you're mentioning becomes now a healthy one, in which in the past it was controlled by one particular department and the word of God comes from down, and this is what you're going to use to get to those goals. I think that has changed dramatically the parallel way of shifting. The third element is that everybody in some way or another wants to be a technology company because they see the technology and digital as essential elements to succeed. And more companies are shifting more to platforms and software, what we call sophistication. So everybody needs to have some element that will give you this particular value creation attached to sustainability to give you that edge to create that shareholder value. That's the third element that we're seeing. And then last, that also gets triggered by accelerators like emerging technologies. So what is the impact of Gen AI will have in accelerating this process for the benefit of creating that shareholder value by providing higher levels of productivity and the ability to monetize accordingly. So that tension continues to be very healthy. Then the other element is you cannot do it by yourself, which is something Valerie was alluding. You need an ecosystem of partners to make it happen. In the past, it was me, myself, and I will make it happen, we'll make it work. Without an ecosystem of partners within an industry, which could be technology, it could be academia, it could be any kind of partners within that ecosystem that allows you to move the needle. And then last but not least, which is for me is very important, us being a people company, is talent. That whole paradigm shift is, and especially coming out of the pandemic, it's basically shifting and changing the way we think, the way we behave, the way we interact, the way we expect, the way we get compensated. And there's a higher level of reward by doing so, by helping companies to be more sustainable. So the leverage of technology, the paradigm shift on behavior, and the need to have a better commitment for a bigger world brings the two together into what we believe, as you point out in the research, a great opportunity for everybody to win and create shareholder value. So those are elements that we see be manifested as we move along.
Thank you so much, Fernando. Maybe Valerie, if I could just ask you maybe for an example, not to put you, I'm a professor, so I'm allowed to cold call people. Fernando talked about partnerships, and an organization like Carrefour obviously has dozens or hundreds and thousands of vendors and suppliers and so on. So maybe a quick comment on the partnership idea and how the digital sustainable work works with partners. For example, like one of your customers or suppliers.
Yeah. Sure. So we work a lot with education, with the education environment, and with the top French business schools, with their chaire in France. It's called chaire. Of mathematics, for example, of ESSEC and Polytechnique, and we engage with this with these students mostly on challenges, right? So, for example, the Green Slots initiatives that I shared with you just before came out from one of these hackathons that we had with the university. We also work a lot with the startup world. So we launched a fund to identify startups that could help increase our implication in responsible e-commerce. So startups around, for example, reduction of waste management in stores, energy management in stores. So we source a lot of startups. We do a lot of POCs and to test the impact on our environmental
you have scale.
impact.
You have scale, and that's something that will let you test out various new ideas that, like you said, proof of concepts from startups. In fact, a large part of our sample, a reasonable part of our sample, were startups, because we wanted to go to the smaller companies as well and try to understand how they are working with in this environment to do this dual transition. Thanks for sharing that, Valerie. Let's keep moving on. We'll dig a little deeper into each of these specific kind of high-level findings from before. To me, the eye-catching one, like the newspaper headline-worthy idea, was the size of the digital economy will double over the next 5 years. I mean, think about what that means globally, right? This is not talking about one sector or one country. This is saying like globally. This is like massive change or growth in size from where we are, and to where we will be. So I'll ask you to take a few minutes to look at the report on especially this, where is this going to come from? How is this going to come from? And we'll pick Valerie and Fernando's brains on that as well. And in fact, as I mentioned before, I was actually quite surprised, I don't know, pleasantly surprised, that business leaders believe that only a quarter of the potential has been realized. Only a quarter of the potential has been realized. I mean, think of what that means. And 75% of the potential is yet to be realized. And I think I have this slide here. But it's not, we are talking so much about Gen AI, and Gen AI is going to be a game changer in so many different ways. But what we heard, perhaps because Gen AI is still kind of early, even though it's a year and a half since since it came to sort of a consumer limelight through ChatGPT, But really, this growth is expected to come from mainstream ideas which have been around for a bit: data analytics, cloud, IoT, RPA, AI, machine learning. So this is not things that are yet to come. This isn't like Gen AI solutions that are going to come later this year or next year or something. This is stuff we already know how to do. We're just going to do it at scale because we now know how to implement. There is a infrastructure that is available. There is software that's available. There is talent that's available. And so now is the time to start scaling. And so when we ask folks, when we ask companies, what are your top 5 investment priorities? And you can see, there is some emerging technology interest, but it's just mainly about scaling mainstream ideas, reskilling the workforce, automating business process. And while doing that, making sure that you are not going off the rails, cybersecurity, privacy, all the ethics and governance around that has to be maintained as well. So I say this more to give ourselves confidence that what the potential isn't something that is where technologies are yet to be discovered. The potential is coming from what we already know, what organizations have already started doing, and the opportunity lies in doing it better, faster, more at scale. And then we look at it across different countries, and generally it's quite the opportunity isn't in one part of the world or the other. The opportunity seems to be fairly distributed from Northern Europe to India to Australia and so on. So it's not there are no haves and have-nots in this stage of growth, and that's one of the charms of digital technologies. It's kind of bridged that gap between the haves and have-nots, which was the Industrial Revolution probably created. The other fascinating idea for all of you in finance out here, and I'm really pleased there are almost 500 people on this webinar. The other fascinating idea is this little graph that you see to the right of the screen. And for the CFOs on the call or any business leader on the call, we went through a phase where digital investments were more in the experimental phase, where the ROI was more faith than reality, but that was the learning phase. That was where you were discovering where ROI is going to come from. There were leaders in that who learned quickly and started implementing, and others followed with help from folks like Fernando, who went around teaching people how to do this better. But really, the expectation now going forward is that the ROI on digital investments is considerably going to be higher from what it was. So the average was 4%. Obviously, there would be more or less across the spectrum. The average is expected to be 14%. Now that is a remark. Now put those two things together: doubling of investment and tripling of ROI. Like, imagine what that impact is going to be in terms of outcomes that we can see. That's what causes me. That's what excites me so much when we see this. When people are talking about growing the base and expecting high levels of returns, that's really exciting. And again, I won't get into this, but there's a lot more in the report than just the highlights that we are talking about here. One of those is, where is this going to come from? What kinds of maybe newer ideas? One is the existing ideas like cloud and RPA, but there are other newer ideas as well, like Gen AI, edge computing, digital twins, quantum technology, synthetic bio, climate tech, AR, VR. There are so many. And what was interesting is we blocked those things in the red boxes. Almost half the companies are already at least dabbling with these ideas. They might not be all in, but half the companies in our sample, 750 roughly global businesses, are already touching these at some depth or the other. So for example, assessing the potential, developing a strategy, that's the middle. Not currently evaluating is actually pretty low. Not currently evaluating is like less than 25% for most of these things. So that's So I can imagine if you did this survey in another year, that's going to be so much higher, so much more advanced. Let me pause again and turn back to my two friends here on the call. There is a sense of economic headwinds at this time. Maybe in reality, but certainly in perception. I'm here in the U.S. The headline this morning, I think, in the Wall Street Journal was, "How come economists are and markets are so pessimistic when the indicators are actually quite positive?" But having said that, there does seem to be a sense of like pause because of geopolitical reasons, because of the inflation that is still under sort of unabated or just about getting in control. So amidst the kind of economic environment that we are seeing, what do you think are some of the drivers of this dual track digital economy? Maybe we'll switch it around this time. We'll start with Fernando, and then Valerie will come to you.
Your observations are very interesting. We are observing the same thing in some of the analysis that we have done. And let's take the US market. Since 1945, the interest rates have not dropped from 5% to less than 3% without a recession. So hence, a lot of this perceived uncertainty is due to the fact that people are expecting a recession. And then the recession is not coming. It's not coming because the consumer price index and people continue to consume. And therefore, then you cannot lower the interest rate. So what is the right balancing act? People are in a waiting mode. The Fed, they were expecting for them to reduce the interest rate. They didn't do that because the consumption price, the expenditure in consuming was higher than expected. So now we have to move to the next session, which could be in the summer. So, but I do agree with you. Our indicators show to us that clients are telling us, I will invest if you give me a good reason to invest. Hence, where people are looking is for value creation. Show me the value, I will invest. In the past, and this is why we believe so much in this eco-digital era, because it's the combination of being able to work and live in a better world by approaching the sustainability part, having an impact on how you design, build, and develop products, but at the same time leveraging all the technology enablers to create that value. For example, everybody talks about GenAI, but we will not be able to talk about GenAI if the maturity of cloud, the maturity of data, the maturity of AI, the maturity of cybersecurity, and most importantly, the ability to scale those enablers are not at the level that we're in today. That's why GenAI becomes attractive, not because of ChatGPT and what we can do with it. It's basically because if you combine them with cloud, with data, with AI, with cyber, and you're able to guarantee quality of the information, you can have secure access to it, and deal with the legal issues, GenAI becomes an accelerator to do better things. You combine them with the ability to design products to make them more sustainable. It's a very powerful value creation proposition. And that's what we believe very much, that from what we're seeing from all our customers is just give me a good reason to invest. Irrelevant of the perceived headwinds, I will invest, because you cannot stop reinventing and innovating yourself in order to continue creating value. Otherwise, others will pass you by. So for us, this has been an opportunity for people to filter, to have a pause, to basically internalize everything that happened pre-pandemic, the post-pandemic. A lot of our customers post-pandemic, they were all in panic mode. So everybody overspent on hyperscalers and cloud consumption. Now you're back into normality. People are rationalizing, they're optimizing, and basically, do I need so much? What is what I really need to go to the next level? So we believe that the combination of the two is a fertile ground for people to continue to create value. And our focus is, that's why we're making this eco-digital era the centerpiece of we as a company that we go to cater our clients. We even shifted the way we're portraying ourselves to the market. We don't want to be seen as an IT outsourcer from Europe. We are a business and technology transformation partner to our clients to help them fulfill the value creation that leads to an additional shareholder value. And that's what people are looking for. And we feel very comfortable that even with the headwinds, we have a very unique value proposition that allows people to make a difference.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that perspective, Fernando. There's related to what you're saying. There's just so many questions I'm seeing in Q&A. Valerie, let me just like take them up for just 30 seconds. This idea, and we're going to come to this. What's the cost? What's the environmental cost of AI, Gen AI going digital? And when we are talking about the benefits, are we talking about the net, or for instance, running LLMs is so energy intensive, with terabytes and terabytes of capacity being needed for that. So several of you have asked that question, and that was a very important question on our minds as we pursued this idea. We'll show you some specific data on that, and the report has much more data on that. So there's a question: is this 25% net or gross? It is net. Yes, at least an expectation. The expectation is that we are going to do better on sustainability with digital investment. It's not going to be another way of improving efficiency at the cost of carbon or climate or the environment. But there's going to be net benefits. But as business leaders, all of you, all of us, have to keep that in mind. When OpenAI and Meta and Microsoft and Google and others are creating these massive models, there's a lot of environmental costs that you're all rightly pointing. Every time I put a query, a prompt into ChatGPT, there is an environmental cost of that. The idea, the sense we are getting from these surveys, talking to all these senior executives, is that there is a net positive, and we have some estimates of what that net positive is going to be. But that's an important question to keep in mind and to keep our attention on as we keep going forward. There is a tension there, and it's upon us to manage that tension well, so that we come out net positive and not net negative from this. But Valerie, maybe on that point, but also on this earlier point of what do you think is fueling this growth on both these areas?
Yeah. So I'm going to be extremely operational and basic. For Carrefour, what fuels any kind of decision process is the customer, right? What do the customer want? And of course, ROI, but ROI flows in the vein of any retailer. And so the thing that we were really trying to keep up with is the expectation bar of our customers, who keeps on rising because it's set by the pure players. And so our customers systematically want to have a better service, a faster service, a cheaper service, and a perfectly well executed service, right? And this requires some investment. So of course, Gen AI can be part of it, but it's not the only one. But I don't see a moment where this is going to stop or slow down, right? And I think that customers, and it's an interesting. I find it to be an interesting contradiction, because customers always want more, and at the same time they want their suppliers to be super eco-responsible. So customers want a fast service. They want to be delivered in 15 minutes without having to think of the impact of having a motorbike drive for 1 kilometer to deliver a liter of water, right? So in French, it's the économie des feignasses. So it's the lazy economy. And I think it's also a question of generation, because
So Valerie, are you saying that companies like Carrefour are therefore sort of taking this into account as you invest in technologies to both meet the customer need but do it in a way that's sustainable?
Yes, and it's not easy, because customers are a bit contradictory. They want everything, for a cheaper, faster, etc., without having a negative impact on the environment, even though sometimes it's absolutely impossible. So
you're talking about people like me, but yeah, keep going.
Yes, absolutely. No, but when you when you want express delivery to be delivered in 12 minutes at your door front, it's usually the same customers that are going to tell us that we should reduce the energy consumption in our stores, right? And they
And
forget.
what you're pointing out is both the challenge and the opportunity in being able to do something like that, and that's where digital comes in. I hear
absolutely.
you. There's again lots of questions coming up. I don't know if this is my dear friend and classmate Gorongo Banerjee, but maybe somebody else with that name. But Gorongo, yes, I completely agree. You know, that's the and there's a question in the Q&A that actually this idea of using digital and for eco-sustainability could be what is will help us drive lower inflation. Productivity improvements, efficiency improvements obviously can lead to that. So on point, I think. And if it's the Gorongo, I know he's an economist, so he caught the right point right there. I'll keep requesting my colleagues, Amol, Vaishnavi, and others to respond to these questions. We might not be able to take all of them up in the live. Let me keep. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Fernando. Let me keep going on and then bring you back up in a few minutes again. And really delighted that there's a large audience that's waiting to hear what we have done in the research and your perspectives. So let's get into this question that was just asked about what's the impact. What's the impact that's going to happen that's coming from digital technologies, and what's the net effect of the benefits? I should have probably waited for this graph before responding there. These are the estimates that we have, and you can dig into the report more. The idea is that yes, there will be increase of emissions due to everything. What we might not have fully captured, to be honest, is what's going to happen with Gen AI next, going forward. Estimates of that are probably hard at this point to figure out, like how big LLMs are going to be. But really, even that's going very quickly to things like small learning models, to sort of local ways of doing things. With that same language models idea that maybe the emission effect, energy effect isn't going to be as bad as we fear it'll be. But our estimates, both on a conservative level and an aggressive estimates, suggest that the benefits are going to be significantly higher than the energy cost of the GHG emission cost of these technologies. And here are some estimates that we came up with. In other words, if this is in the report, it's not in the slide. If you think about what is needed to achieve the Paris expectations, the Paris Accord expectations, about a quarter of that can be achieved from improved digital investments by using digital technologies to reduce, to improve efficiency, to reduce emissions for environmental benefit. And here are some ways. That are very similar to what Valerie was talking about in terms of monitoring, predicting, thinking through the entire value chain, optimizing resource utilization, the kind of ideas that Fernando was talking about and Valerie was talking about just now. This is just kind of reinforcing what we all were just talking about organizations believing that digital technologies, especially, will and there is a lot of desire to bring advanced digital technologies into the sustainability space. And this is from a quote from a senior UN environmental program executive, that is really, we don't have a choice. At this point, digital technologies, AI, machine learning, and ways that those technologies help us achieve efficiencies, we really don't have a choice than to use them. Yes, we can reduce energy consumption in other ways, and we can We can become more sustainable by so many other initiatives. But when you have a very, very useful tool, why would we not use it? And that's what we heard repeatedly. We know how to use these tools very well. We just have to repurpose them. And that's where these two come together. There was a time perhaps when we would pursue sustainability initiatives separately. There would be like a chief sustainability officer and a chief digital officer. The interesting insight is that this is coming together, that these functions are thinking similarly, are using each other and that's where the initial Venn diagram that you saw, the two circles that were separate, are more and more overlapping. And this can come in a strategic sense as well. I think we might have talked about operational ways of getting the motorcycle not to go that 1 kilometer to deliver a bottle of water. But it can also come in strategic ways, and that we heard quite a bit. Circular business models, business model level innovation, not just at an operating level innovation, pay-as-you-go models, sharing economy. Just how do you design organizations? How do you design your strategies that inherently are sustainable in nature, and then how do you use platforms and ecosystems and artificial intelligence and so on to design those business models. So let's maybe let me just pause here. We don't have an expert question, but any quick thoughts on ideas that you're seeing, Fernando and Valerie, on this sustainability as a business model, or sort of a digital sustainability as a business model itself? There are some examples here. Maybe in your work, I'm sure you might have come across things. But so if anything jumps to mind as an example, would love to have you share those.
Yeah, happy to share maybe what Carrefour was started doing last year, which is going for the rental economy instead of the selling economy for us. So instead of selling a washing machine, we tested the fact to rent a washing machine, including some kind of services with that rental offer. So for example, instead of selling a washing machine, you sell a service that enables you to keep your clothes clean. It does include a washing machine, but it also includes the liquid to wash your clothes and all that. And our customers were extremely happy to see us go on these kind of businesses. Then again, you need to see the full chain, right? So it's not only being able to rent a product instead of selling it, but then what do you do once the product has been rented for example 12 months? It's hard to rent it again. So how do you recycle it, etc. And for that part, which is the post, let's say, after the product has delivered most of its value, because customers want new product, we also started working with some startups specialized in reconditioning of appliances. So yes, I'm rather very strongly convinced that, and here again, it will come from the customer, but that digital will enable to unlock some new business models that will be much more sustainable.
Thank you, Valerie. Any quick thoughts, Fernando?
My only additional comment is something that we have not mentioned much, but it will trigger this to happen quicker, which is regulations. Regulation is pushing this to happen sooner than later, and you will see that depending on the industries, a higher amount of a threshold, pushing people to what net zero, high levels of sustainability, compliance with sustainability requirements as you build your products. It's all of this is fueling these new business models to think out of the box, besides the bigger need of society. So in all these elements, you have the tangible technology components, you have the enablers, but regulations, and how do we deal with the regulations or the over-regulations? It's something that will have a huge impact in all industries, in all these business models that we move forward. So it's another element that we should not lose perspective. Some of them do it to protect. Europe, we have a tendency of doing it to protect sovereignty. Others do it to control. But it's something that is a reality that will have an impact all
That's
this inequality.
that's a great point, and I see a comment in the Thibault Miranda is maybe a little like skeptical of that happening in the U.S. Maybe more so, but we'll see. And there's
Well,
always like
don't take lightly the following: the legislation the IRA legislation that passed in the U.S.
yeah.
is the most advanced in terms of fomenting sustainability of any part of the world because of the amount of money that is being poured into make it a reality. So I think you may not see it, but it will be in our face very soon. You see the proliferation of gigafactories in the US. So I think the IRA legislation will have a dramatic change as we move forward.
The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, is a game changer, and that's so true. Despite what you might be kind of getting as headlines in the press, there's a lot happening under the hood, as they say. We have less than 10 minutes, so let me keep going and then pull the group in. There's lots of very interesting questions that I hope we can save these questions for responding later on. Amala and Amal, Hakan had this question of which large organizations in traditional industries do you see as forerunners? Not the tech industries. We have Valerie here from Carrefour for a reason, because they are continue to be a leader in this. So I think that one I can state without like too much hesitation. We have several examples in the report. I don't want to call out just one or two on the call, but we have several examples in the report of companies that are leaders, and that's not even an exhaustive list for sure. But you take a look at the report. There is several examples there of organizations like Carrefour, which at least we see as doing various things that are compatible with this idea of driving both these technologies. Driving sustainability with digital. Now, what can you do? Again, I'm going to refer you to the report. Maybe you're getting tired of hearing me say that, but there's a lot in there, which is why I don't want you to miss what we have in there. But what we are calling challenges here is actually challenges and opportunities. Whenever I see challenges, I think of it as like, the glass is 80% full, the 20% is the challenges, and then how do we fill that 20% as well? I know that there was a question in Q&A about purpose of the organization and how that will the goals and objectives of the organizations. Valerie mentioned OKRs. The O of OKRs is objectives. Like what are we really trying to drive as an organization? That is the first opportunity to think about aligning the org structure with digital initiatives. This has to be, as we've been learned repeatedly, this has to be a senior management, and there has to be enough resource allocation behind this. Training and people-related initiatives, having a digital culture, training. If you recall one of the earlier slides, by the way, these are all business opportunities. These aren't just opportunities for large organizations to do within themselves. Reskilling is a massive entrepreneurial opportunity. This is an opportunity for existing businesses, for new businesses, for startups, for institutions such as ours, universities and academic institutions, for organizations like Fernando's, Capgemini and others, thinking about what skills are needed and how are we going to go about providing them, and the technical issues. Now, look, a lot of technical issues are being managed by the technology firms, by cutting edge firms in this area. Technology issues are rapidly becoming less of a constraint. Fernando talked about we are able to do what we are able to do because cloud and because the existing set of technologies have brought us to the place where we can advance quickly. But having said that, there are constant issues about data privacy. There are constant cyber breaches that happen. Valerie has spent time in the trenches of thinking about how to integrate new systems with legacy systems, compliance with regulations, GDPR and around the world similar regulation. All these are things that provide some friction but are also places where there is an opportunity for us to lubricate and create businesses out of that opportunity. So what we have here is a series of things which again I'm going to ask you to go and look at the report for specific ideas of what organizations are doing. Some of the leaders, some of the cutting edge companies are doing in this, but at a high level, thinking about both strategy and operations, it's kind of the yin and yang, the two sides of this, two sides of implementation. Having these objectives and then figuring out how digital technologies on the sustainability front are going to fit into that, and find the resourcing, and do things like what Fernando was talking about, platforms, ecosystems, getting partnerships. You're not going to be able to do everything by yourself. So whether it is startups, whether it is larger organizations, research institutions, and so on. So there's a lot of excitement here. There's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of growth that's expected. There's a lot of investment returns that are going to grow. And so how do we do that? In the few minutes that we have here, I'm going to look at the questions and see if there is something that we can pick up quickly. But I'm going to turn it back to you, Fernando and Valerie. We have 2 minutes. So what would you want people on the call, on the webinar, to take away? Just a few bullet points of things from your experience, from this research, from what we are finding, that they should take away from this hour with us.
Valerie,
Go ahead.
Valerie, you can go.
Okay, thanks. I would say, first, get your organization ready. Second, listen to your customers. And no third point, because if you have the right organization and if you are very mindful of what your customers want, for me, you have everything to reach your objectives.
Thank you.
I totally agree. Clients, customer goes first. That's everything that drives. Second, this is not a nice to have. This is a reality. It is in our face and we have to act on it. Our job is to make sure that it's done in such a way that creates value. And the technology is here. It's just to be leveraged appropriately to move the needle to a more sustainable world. So the combination of the two is very important. And last but not least, nothing is possible without the right talent. So do not underestimate the necessary right talent to succeed. And nourish, train, and make sure that there's continuity in the process, because it's not a one-off. So I truly believe that this is the world we're in today.
Thank you, Fernando. That's and Valerie, those are useful things to keep in mind. I'm going to try to pull together some of these questions that are in chat, and so excellent questions that are here. But there are so many ways to be sustainable and environmentally conscious. Our goal was to think about. We started with thinking about what's going to happen in the digital world, in the digital economy, and we quickly arrived at this interesting intersection between sustainability and the digital economy. And this is what we're hearing from companies around the world. This is every place, and that's what created this real kind of insight that both these are. If you went and asked people today, what are the pressing problems, what are the pressing issues of the world, what are not just problems, what are the big phenomena that are going on? There's certainly going to be the geopolitics and all the issues around that. If I were to pick the top three, it would be that sustainability and AI and digital. And it is so fascinating that the AI, digital, and the sustainability circles are coming so closely together. So of course there are so many other things to be done, but everything, almost every one of these things, can be faster, can be accelerated with technology, with digital. Keeping in mind this important caveat that several of you pointed out, that digital also has an environmental footprint. And so how do we make sure that we are net positive and not net negative? That is something we're going to have to constantly work on. That's not going to automatically happen. But as long as our objective, as Fernando, Valerie, and I have been talking about, as long as our objective is to drive sustainability and the environment in front, and digital is in service of that, that will automatically happen. And that might require education, as Valerie was talking about. That might require new organizational forms and partnerships and so on, as Fernando was talking about, and all the other things that this report points to. So I'm going to we are at time. I don't want to keep you folks beyond. Thank you so much, Fernando. Thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you to the entire DCube team, Amala, Antone, and others. Thank you to the entire Capgemini team, Amol, Vaishnavi, Dominique, the folks at Capgemini who really kind of pushed and ran this research. There's so much we have learned, and this webinar, the objective was to bring it to more of you. I hope you will go and read the report and take it into your organizations. And our emails and contacts are there. I think our QR codes are here as well. So you have the report. Do be in touch. There are several of you who mentioned in Q&A that you have interesting ideas. Please do send it to us. Be in touch. Send us an email. We'll be happy to engage. Hope you enjoyed this. And take this forward. There's a lot to be done. So take this forward. Make the findings come true. This is a forecast of the future, so you'll have to work to get to the forecast. Let's make it happen. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you to the entire team for making this happen, and thank you, Fernando and Valerie, for joining us. Take care.